Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Inside Game podcast. Before I introduce today's guest, this episode is in association with Raymond Waters at the Old Coach Inn Castleblaney. And here's a word from Ray's Tanning and Wellness in Auchnachoy. Ray's are the first on the island of Ireland to offer the Red Wave Pure Red Light Therapy Bed, a cutting edge recovery tool now being used by top athletes worldwide. Whether it's muscle soreness, inflammation, joint stiffness, or speeding up overall recovery, red light therapy is becoming a genuine game changer. So if you're training hard, coming back from a knock, or just wanting to stay injury free, call into Ray's and experience the benefits for yourself. Ray's Tanning and Wellness is helping athletes recover faster, perform better, and stay in the game. And now on to today's guest. He's a former County Down player and played full-back in the 2010 All-Ireland final, a two-time Down Senior Championship winner with Burren, and the current joint manager of the Queen's University Sigerson team. So here is Daniel McCartan. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
No problem, Gary.
You're the very first non-Armagh man to appear in the podcast, and a good Down man, no less.
Well, I can tell you, you're the first podcast I ever said yes to. And the first part of the media man I ever said yes to in a long time.
Well, that's a privilege. But look, Daniel, I suppose you and I go back a long way from our time in school and in St Colman's in Newry, and would have been in the same class for quite a few of the years and played on the school team together from first year right through the seventh year. And look, when you look back at it, the school years, they were actually very good, really, weren't they?
Oh yeah, look, we were blessed in our school time, and we didn't probably appreciate it. We were blessed with the coaches we had available to us, and Mickey Doyle, Ray Morgan, Pete McGrath, Declan Musson. Do you know what I mean? That it's only whenever you're exposed and you get a bit older and you're exposed to other coaches, you don't realise how lucky you were to have the coaches you had at that time, developing skills just using drills and stuff that is will stand the test of time. Do you know what I mean? These men, their ideas in football have still stood the test of time. And over my 30 years of watching football, being involved in teams, they weren't too far away. They weren't too far off the mark. They men.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that team we played on never won any of the competitions through the years. But I certainly do remember we picked up some big results along the way. But what do you remember about and what do you take sort of from your playing days in school football?
Look, school football was a blessing probably for people like ourselves, Gary. We were out in smaller areas, or rural areas. We got the opportunity to train 3 times a week with our own peers, which probably bigger clubs maybe had that opportunity. We didn't have, and you were developing your skills and testing yourself against your peers from other clubs and other levels, and you're able to see that you weren't maybe as far away as you thought you were. Maybe you were as good as you thought you were. It felt confidence. And you notice that when you came back to your club, if you trained all winter with the college, it made some difference to you. You're seeing your improvement over the time. Simple touches of the ball, kicking, catching, simple skills, but repetition, and your skills developed. As the next note, I'll go on record here to tell you this: that whenever we were in first year, Guy Creaney was the best player in St Commons, by undoubtedly. Do you know what I mean? So I'll go on record and say that. But boys develop at different levels and different times, and Big Tom Franklin was definitely superb. You know what I mean? And like the boys I played with were excellent footballers, and it brought me on at that age, and it's probably inspired me to keep going, keep playing, and keep at it, and keep practicing.
Yeah. Well, you actually suffered a bad leg break, Daniel. I remember playing for the school team. I think you were maybe playing for the year above, and if I remember right, it happened in David Park. But I think what stood out to me at that time probably was your dedication and your maturity towards your rehab. You're only a teenager at the time, because many young lads maybe wouldn't have come back from that.
Yeah, that happened in '97. It was the day before the Lorne final, and in our house, when you have 7 kids, one of seven. My father was addicted to football. He wasn't big on holidays, not because he didn't like going away. He didn't like missing football or being away from the situation. Our holidays were, we went to the Ireland final weekend. We stayed up on the Friday, depending on when it was, Friday, Saturday. Went to the match on Sunday and up the road, and that was always our holiday. And in that occasion in David Park, it was for '97, before Morris Fitzgerald's famous Ireland final against Mayo. And I never seen it because they just took me down for the operation at 3:30 the next day in the Royal. It was the first Ireland final I'd missed since '91 at that time. We
Mhm.
were playing David Park against St Pat's Armagh, and I had been playing cornerback, cornerback in the team, and I got injured. I hurt my knee doing the Stanton broad jump in PE exam. Declan Musson was doing PE exam, and I hurt my knee. It just fell over, twisted it. So I missed the game, and I missed the game. And Brian Hamill came in and played excellently cornerback. Butch, we call him Butch. He was
Uh-huh.
excellent,
Yeah.
and he served his place. So I came back, and they tried me at corner forward, and I'll never forget. I was playing corner forward, and like I wouldn't have been known for my scoring prowess. Do you know what I mean? And that day I'd kicked 2 or 3 points, and Guy Digney goes to me coming out one time. Guy Digney was, he was a year above us that time, excellent footballer,
Yeah.
one of our better ones. Turned to goes, Jesus, Dan, you're in form tonight. What's wrong with you? And I want to move me. Mr. Musson moved me to centre half forward, Morgan Paddy Grimes, and my father had come onto the field previously. Now Paddy Grimes was Marmar Harps, good footballer and everything else, and my father had come onto the field, and I'd give the referee abuse, saying that Mr. Grimes was coming in late and he was going to break somebody's leg. And as my father then get ushered to leave the ground. And that stage was the old Devon Park, and there was a wee gate, if you remember, behind the nets closest to the road. And my
Huh.
dad was walking out, and Big John Sloan, a fantastic keeper from Call, we had a fantastic keeper, one in Ireland '99. He was kicking the ball out to the right side, and I went for the, like an Egypt probably went for the kick out. And I remember catching it in the chest, and Peter Hines was below me, and we all heard the crack of my of my leg snapping. And I remember Peter Hines was rolling about the ground, screaming, going, "I'm in agony! I'm in agony! My legs broke! My legs broke!" And I knew then. That was, as I said to somebody, '90s. That day was the last day I cried until my dad's funeral, my sister's funeral. Do you know what I mean? The pain was excruciating. I had just caught the ball, and poor Mr. Grimes was coming in. He didn't mean to break my leg. He just slipped. It was a wet day, slipped, and he landed on my leg, and it's although I fell down. I remember Matty McLean that fell in front of him. He fell in front of the St Pat's Armagh dugout, and Matty McLean came on and he's trying to get up. He says, "Get up, you're okay." And Mr. Musson, Daggy Musson, on the field, and he goes, "Look at his leg; it's still on the ground." And I remember my daddy was walking out he didn't know it was me. He sprinted onto the field and had the referee by the throat. The referee like this going, "I blame you for that. I blame you for that." And I just says, "Dad," and he just looked at me and he just dropped the referee. And he just couldn't believe he just couldn't believe it. It was me. He thought it was somebody else. Like, he didn't think it was me. And then it went from going to kill the referee to, you know, trying to get me better, that situation.
Uh-huh.
I remember the only thing he said to me, he says, "Don't look at it. It could make you afraid to play football." So I never looked at it. I never looked at my leg. But I tell you, it was the longest day of my life sitting on that pitch. I remember I was in front of the St Pat's Armagh dugout, and they were all brought back in because we'd wait in we had to wait on the ambulance about 45 minutes, and I could just remember their faces. But I remember Brian Mallon and Finian Moriarty, boys I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was a good. Finian Moriarty would have been a friend of ours. My father obviously would have been big pals with Ando, his granddad, and they'd have come out on the Saturday, and Finian would have played football out in our house with me and Owen out in him and Patrick. So we'd have known Finian from he was no height, and I just remember his face looking at me, going, "It wasn't good. It wasn't good." But look, it happened. That did happen. And there's nothing I could really do about it. But I was fortunate that I was fortunate to arrive to the. I went to the hospital. It was an awkward age, Gary, where if they'd have put a pin in my leg, they'd have left me one leg shorter than the other, and because I was still in growing, and I would have been maybe wouldn't be able to play football. And I arrived at Crow at uh, Craigavon, and at that stage, I was waiting for 45 minutes, waiting a brave lot of time. My daddy had his. He decided. He says, "Look, this man needs to be seen." And I'll never forget it. The pain was excruciating. I never cried. I couldn't even cry. I was probably in shock, to be honest with you. And the woman had a pair of predators at that stage. And I wouldn't have been known from my football boots. I'd have been more a gloves man. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have been too worried about my feet. But a pair of they bought me a pair of predators for because I know I was young, but I had a big feet for my age. Like I was 10, 10 and a half or 11, do you know what I mean? And I was only fourth year. I'd never got any bigger than that, but I had big feet. So there wasn't that many options of boots at that stage. So I got an old set of Predators back then, the ones with the wee mould on it. And I'll never forget it. And the girl cut the boot off my good foot and pulled the boot off my leg, my bad foot. And the kitty dish there on the side of me, and I fucked the kitty dish. And I hit the nurse right on the skull with the scream. My knee was still on the ground and my leg was up. I'd fractured my tibia and fibula, both bones, 3 places. So it was a Saturn job, it was in bad shape. Like,
It
uh,
was a bad one.
and I remember I got to the Royal, they sent me to the Royal. And if it wasn't for a man called Boyce in the college jersey, Rodney Skelly, he played for St. Pat's Mahara with my brothers in the 80s and for James. And he seen me and he asked my name and he says, "Look, will not put it." He stayed with me for a couple of hours. I think his shift finished, and I'll never forget him for it because if he hadn't stayed with me, some of them doctors want to put a pin in it, and he stayed with me to make sure they didn't put a pin in it. And they put me in a cast and the recast and a couple of operations, as you well know, going forward for it to move it, manipulate it, and stuff like that. But I owed Rodney Skelly probably that I ended up still playing football because without him, I'd had a pin in my leg and I was still growing and I had one leg shorter than the other. My football career probably would have been over in that situation.
Yeah, a remarkable recovery. I do remember it well, even though it was quite some time ago. But look, Dan, you're now coaching Sigerson football at Queen's University along with Tyrone's Fergal Logan. Well, first of all, how's it going?
Look, look. Time. I wouldn't have much time to coach teams far away only because of the 3 young kids and stuff like that. And I've said no to a lot of people that do help coach and stuff. But some of the Queen's men came and asked me and approached me, and then we met with Fergal, and it's very hard to say no to a man who's had a stroke and is willing to give his time up, and you're sitting at home healthy and not giving his time up. Look, I was very lucky. If it wasn't for Queens and my club and a couple of other things, like it was a great pathway for me for my education of football and my development. So I do owe it the establishment a bit. So whenever Fergal came asking, the meeting was at 7:30, I think, in Armagh Hotel. I think we left at 11:30. I went going in saying no, and I'd come out saying yes, and I hadn't told the wife that I said yes, but somebody must have seen us, and the papers got hold of it the next day, and it was released. I was in a course in Lisburn, a dental course in Lisburn. And the boys, obviously, somebody got released on. Somebody said we need to release this before somebody else released it. So I hadn't even told the wife. So when I came home that night, it was all picture no sound again.
And would you have any ambitions to manage like at the county level at any stage, Daniel?
Look, to manage a county level, you'd have to be. It's a full-time job, really. Now it's got to that stage. Like it's got to that stage, and they're looking at full-time commitment. Like you'd need to be. Unfortunately, I run 2 businesses. I have a dental practice in Bestbrook, and I have my wife, and we have a pharmacy at the Five Ways in Uri. So time, I wouldn't be able to give the time at the moment. I probably owe too much money. I have to pay that back. Some of the banks wouldn't give you a sabbatical to go manage things. I wouldn't have time to. at the moment for that sort of thing. Have I any ambition? I don't know. Is the answer to that. I didn't think at the start of this year that I would be coaching Queens. Am I enjoying it? Yes, working with some top quality footballers. Uh, but I don't know what the future holds. Like I wouldn't say that I'm driving ambition to manage anybody in that sort of way, but you know what the future holds and them sort of things. If somebody else was going to that and you asked to give you a hand or give them a hand, maybe you might get involved in that level. But look, as you know, I'm a proud Down man, and I want Down to do well, and I want my club to do well, and I want the university to do well, and I want St Coleman's College to do well because I've alma mater, they're all my alma maters. So
Mm-hmm.
I make no bones about that. They're the four teams that make a difference to me. So I'll like there I still lift the paper every week to see how the college are doing. I
Mm-hmm.
still lift the paper every week to see how Queens are doing. I don't want the matches when I can. I go to college matches when I can. I go to most Down matches, as you well know, underage and everything. That's just look, it's maybe an addiction I have, you know what I mean? But with regard to taking a team, I don't know if I'd have the skill set. I don't know if it's the right man for that job. And I don't look. You need to have your kids up at a level where you weren't being selfish, that you weren't able to take time with them.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. But you never know. You never know. But before we get on to your county years with Down, I want to talk to you about Burn. Now I know. Obviously, you grew up in Donaghcloney when you were young,
Mm-hmm.
and Tullyleash would have been your first club. But probably the success you would have ended up having would have been with Burn when you moved to there. You won the Down Senior Championship in 2010 and 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and that 2011 team went all the way to the Ulster final. I was at that game in the athletic grounds. You lost to Cross McGlen, powerhouse of a team still at that stage, who were on their way to back All Ireland titles. But let's talk about that winning Burn team, that sort of back to back titles team. Like I'm sure it was a great time for you, winning those medals.
Oh, yeah, with a good side. Look, the 2011 team, we lost. I think we lost three or four players through suspension in the first round against Fermanagh champions. We lost a boy in the sent off. Then we lost Owen and Cian McGovern and Latin. Then we lost Anton against Crossmaglen in the final. I think Paddy Poland actually started that. It was his first championship start in an Ulster final just because of three injuries and stuff. So the year previous, we were beat after extra time in Casement, or beaten extra time by a point, and we had a chance to win it in 2010. Kevin tried an outside of the boot shot and it just went wide, and there's plenty of times it's over the bar, so it wasn't his fault. It's just one of them things. So in 2011, we probably didn't give a count ourselves because we hadn't the same personnel. No offense to the personnel were on, but they were younger, and they were. Shea McCartan was only 18, Donald was only 18, the young boys, and the older statesmen had been injured or sent off. Now they did great jobs, but you're coming up against Cross McGlen, who winning, current or champions and stuff like that. So you need to have, on force at club level, you need to have your full deck, and we probably didn't have a full deck in 2011. We were going in hope, probably more than anything else. But these things happen. You never know when the day things happen. It just didn't go for us. We lost Anton with 10 minutes to go, and to give Cross McGlen or 10 minutes into the game. One of our midfielders, a great player, Anton. He was on the county panel at the time, on the 20s, and he was a powerhouse of man. Unfortunately, we lost him. So look, you can't. That's 14 against 15 in the modern game. It's not pretty.
Yeah, and Burn as a club, like in general, that they're always seem to be knocking on the door. And would it be fair to say they're probably the most likely team that will eventually sort of halt Kilcoo's sustained period that they're having?
Well, Clonduff and Cardiff wouldn't like to hear that. You know what I mean? Like Clonduff is probably, to be honest with you, it'd be like Clonduff, Cardiff, Burn. They were all ambitious to do that, to halt Kilcoo's, but you've got to hand it to Kilcoo. Kilcoo are still winning, still finding a
Hmm.
way, still the benchmark, and these Burn, Clonduff, and Cardiff have to bridge that gap, and that's really where we're at. And we're not just doing a good job of it at the moment because Kilcoo used to run away with county titles.
Yeah. Just we'll move on to your years with Down. When was your senior debut with the county, Daniel?
I came to. I was playing in the forward line with Burn. I was playing freshers for Queens, and I was playing full forward in the forward line with Ronnie Clark and John Clark and Conal Dunn, and we won the fresher title in 2002. And I went back to the club and I was playing the forward line. But that stage, Burn had a lot of county men. So you'd starred games back then. So
Yes.
star games were games that the county players didn't play in. So I had played 3 or 4 games in the forward line. The county men come back. So Dan, you're going to the bench. No problem. I went to the bench. The first game that I was on the bench, Peter McDonald was our manager from Mullavan. Excellent man, an excellent manager, and he definitely knows his stuff. And his credit to any team that they're blessed to get Peter on it. And Peter pulled me out of the dugout and says, "Have you ever played defence, Dan?" And I says, "Yeah, Peter. I used to play the year in school. I played in the forwards year above me, and I played in the defence in my year, as you know. It was and our defence for that year." So I says, "Yeah, I played defence." So he put me corner back, and we were playing Bransford, and Gene Morgan, who was an excellent player from Bransford, who never got the credit he deserved. He played for years, never made it this county. I don't know why not, whether he wasn't picked or didn't want to go or something, but an excellent player from thing. I was put on the mark, Gene Morgan, and I got lucky that night, fall of the ball, everything went my way, and you know, Gene ripping it up the first half, and I come on the second half, marked him. I probably didn't get as many touches, not through my brilliance, through just one of them things, but sometimes your stock goes up highly by doing nothing. I thought that's what happened to me. And that year, I played cornerback all year. And that year, I got the call from Paddy to O'Rourke to join the senior panel. And that was 2002, 2003. So my first year was the year we got the run to the played Tyrone in the Ulster final in 2003.
Yes. Yeah.
That's whenever I
Remember.
started.
And I suppose what people will really want to know is about probably the 2010 season. Of course, your run all the way through to the All Ireland final. Your brother James, the legendary wee James McCartan, managing the team. And was your brother Owen in that squad as well?
Owen wasn't in that squad. No, Owen done his cruciate again, so he was out. He was injured at that stage. He only got back playing for the club at the end of 2010, and he's only at that stage he was managing his knees. We only was coming on as a sub and doing stuff like that for us. You know, Owen had the three cruciate injuries and the bad knees. But look, as you well know, Owen was twice the footballer as ever. As one of the boys in Burners once said, could you not take a couple of injuries and let him play for a while?
I almost fantastic player.
Avoid Jackie McCann told me that one time. He says, "Can you not take a lot of injuries and let him play for a while?" So I says, "Jackie, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is, you know." Yeah. Look, Owen was unfortunate. He's injured. He played a couple of years after that, you know, 12 and 13. But again, another cruciate injury. It was actually unfortunate. He's marking Niall Donnelly from Tullish, and they collided, and then Niall came through his knee, and that was the end of Owen playing, you know.
Well, in 2010, Down, you topped the Division 2 league table, and then you lost out to Armagh in the league final playoff, sort of the league final. So yes, look, you were a team in the upper echelons of football for sure, but I don't think many around the county or around the country, would have penciled Down in for an All Ireland final appearance that season. So again, you know, not when you exited Ulster against Tyrone, I'm sure not many people weren't thinking that either. But was the belief sort of always in the camp as to sort of how good it could get that year?
Look, Down at one a minor Ireland, you know what I mean? They've been knocking about in under 20s that stage, you know what I mean? They were winning Ulster champions like no Conor Garvey, you know what I mean? Kevin McCartan, Paul McComiskey, all knocked about, and they're experienced footballers, you know what I mean? Like in 2008, we had won a Sickerson, and Luke Hard was playing. Aidan Carr was playing. A lot of down boys were playing, and on the Georgetown team, you John Boyle and other boys. Like there's a lot of people. There were. You could say that we were underachieving probably than we're at, because a lot of boys had a wee bit of stock in their football. Do you know what I mean? You don't get to Lorne finals at underage, at minor and under 20s, and not have some sort of level of ability. So
Mhm.
probably we were, just hadn't matured. The boys, some of them, well, just hadn't weren't old enough at that time. Did we believe that you're going to land up in Lorne final at the start of the year? Like, no, you play football to get to them days, so that's your ambition. But some of us were, that's what you do. Some of us were probably in a different mindset than others, because we're older, and time's running out, and you're trying to change the ethos of the whole thing. And we had a couple of very frank meetings after defeats, and uh, boys were very honest, and that honesty probably stood to the group, because it proceeded onwards, and the boys were honest to what they were doing, and uh, that was very. It developed, changed a lot of our style, changed a lot of things, but changed the trust within the group, and that people started playing for everybody, and it made a big difference. You know, it
Yeah.
gelled the group probably better, and you need a bit of luck. I have no bones about it. Like if Ambrose is playing in the Lorne final, or Liam Doyle, you know what I mean. We were lucky them boys done the cruciates. Like our county. I blame our county for playing a championship game in the middle of August weekend. We were playing. We had to play then 2 weeks later, and we were all watching ourselves around the championship. Now I understand that uh, club players want to play football. That's no problem. But we got the Lorne final, and there wasn't one person in our county begrudged to get that the championship was put back. The championship was played then after week on week afterwards, and
Mhm.
nobody complained, because we got the Lorne final. Everybody
Mhm.
enjoyed that trip. And like sometimes counties are arrogant a wee bit. Like Down have been in 125 years. Down have been playing football in Ulster, or in August. Sorry, in August, I think 12 or 13 times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you get that opportunity, you go for it. Now I do believe. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm not anti-club, but I'm not anti-club in any way. But I'm just saying, like, did we need to play that round of championship? No. And if I hadn't played the round of championship, all right, Ambrose could get played injured training, but you know, Ambrose and other players get injured. Like I just look. I just it sickens me a wee bit, because the last game, and we all want to watch it because the last game, and poor Ambrose got injured.
Yeah.
I just know the way he was playing that year, and the way he played for us. He just really come into himself, matured, and he was leading the team, leading the group. Fantastic, and I think maybe possibly the result could have been different if he had been about, Or Liam
But
Doyle, poor Liam done his cruciate the year previous. He had an infection and stuff. Like Liam Doyle, as you know, in the college was
mhm.
a Rolls Royce of a footballer, and didn't get probably
He
the credit
was.
that he did because due to injuries.
But
You know.
I'm gonna ask you about the experience of playing in an All Ireland final, but just sort of for the listeners, you built a lot of momentum through the back door, as there was back then. Longford, Offaly, Sligo, big one against Sligo. Of course, the big one, you took Kerry on that. Then I'm sure at that point that's whenever you actually believe you beat Kerry. Ended up out of what, maybe 6 or 8 points or something in it at the end, and then an epic semi final against Kildare. That was a fantastic match. Loved it. I remember watching it. I thought it was just a great game. Down Marty Clark on fire that day. But the All Ireland final itself, that was a really strong Cork team. They were coming close, knocking on the door quite a bit in around that time. They finally get over the line. But just the experience of it, Daniel. Obviously, I'm sure the defeat probably still sits in your throat. Sometimes if you think about it, but the experience alone. I mean, what's that like? Because not many people get to do that.
Yeah, like make no bones about it, Gary. Like as you well know, I'm not the best footballer even in my own house. like I'd probably say, dare I say, of the five boys, I was the least skillful. Like Brandon is cruciate, but he won a minor in Ireland. He played midfield in the minors. Owen was an excellent footballer. Charlie Pat. I got gained far more skill than I ever had. You know what I mean? One on Hogan with the college and stuff like that. But unfortunately, the cruciate injuries and stuff like they were so like you grew up in this house, in my house at home. Like my father was football mad, my family's football mad, brothers football mad, uncles football mad, and like to play in Lorne final is your dream. There's no point in saying any different. And even from we entered the college in '94, obviously uh, down were the kingpins, but by the end of us leaving in '99 and or 2000, Armagh were the kingpins. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And to play in a Lorne final is like it's a dream. Like but it's also a nightmare when you lose it. I still would have. Look, I'm lucky to have played in one. Yes, I'm lucky I've had the experience, but you you make a couple mistakes in the game, and then things play in your mind. If you've done this differently, if you've done that differently, and it plays in my mind regularly. Do you know what I mean? Plays in my mind regularly, and I'm sure anybody who's played in that game will have the same thing because you know how much effort went into getting there,
Hmm.
and you know when you play in Ulster how hard it is to get back there. You
Yeah.
know it's not as difficult probably from some of the other provinces because you don't have to start training as hard early on. You have to be peaking 4 or 5 times throughout the year if you're in Ulster, whereas you don't have to do that if you're maybe in Munster or Connacht. Do you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
for a long time there, Leinster because Dublin were kingpins. Do you know what I mean? So they could you could gauge your training to be peaking in August and September back then, whereas we had to peak in May for the first round. You had to be going again June. You had to be going again in August. So it's not as easy. So to get there was a big. You knew how much effort went into it. You were 28 at the time, 29. You realised I might get another crack at this. So them things all play in your head, and it it plays in your mind. Probably a lot of times, and when you're the only person in your house to lose in an Ireland final, it's not much crack, Gary. you know what I mean? When everybody else has won one, and they've all got their medals, and I'm the only one. So them things like play in your mind a wee bit. But as an experience, yeah. And I try to tell people you can't prepare for what it is in the Ireland final. Uh, when you go onto that field, it's a white noise around the ground. You can't. Somebody can be 10 yards from you, and you can be screaming at them, and they can't hear you. They
Yeah.
can't hear you because there's a white noise of cacophony of sound. And it's look, and when the ball's kicked, if it's over the bar before anybody else does, because the crowd behind it has already responded.
Yeah.
Very, there's different things that the parade is a wonderful experience. Like knowing where you're, like my father and mother always had the same tickets, so I knew where they were on match day. I knew where my family was. That I love fortunate enough to always know we as I always told you, our weekends were going to matches in Dublin. My father would have put me and Owen in the car, and we went every Sunday to play hurling or football at the Crow Park, and that was probably our upbringing. And you know yourself, football, you're so close to your dream, and you didn't make it. Sometimes can hurt, but look, I'm delighted that I got that experience, I suppose. But just whenever you're maybe in another 10 years, when I look back, I won't be as bitter. But when you've lost one, it's very difficult. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to look back without. You've no medals in the cabinet. It can be something different.
But as I say, you're one of only not very many people get to do it, Daniel. So even in that's an achievement in itself. But I think
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
finish up here shortly, Dan. I just want to ask you one more thing about down football in general, because I know, as you said, we started in school in '94, and back then down were very much the elite. Armagh were Armagh were the poor cousins. We took a lot of stick off the down men back then, but towards the end of our sort of school days, Armagh were starting to come good, and a couple of All Irelands, a lot of Ulsters have sort of come along ever since. And in that time down, I haven't actually picked up any trophies, but I think certainly from what I saw in the last couple of years, particularly last year against Galway, down looked like they were performing at a very high level that day. And I suppose the one sad thing from a down point of view is that getting into the All Ireland, into the Sam Maguire series next year is going to be quite difficult because you have to travel to Ballybofey and Ulster. You have to reach an Ulster final. Your Division 3 status is going to hinder getting back to Sam Maguire. But down football in general, it looked to me last year like it was heading somewhere, but it might still be another couple of years before you start seeing it really back again.
Yeah, look, everybody's trying. Lav's he's doing a good job. He's trying to turn the corner as best he can. But we're realistic with the task ahead of him. But playing again in Ballybofey, but he'll try his best and he'll give everything he can to make it. And the players will try their best and do whatever they can for the jersey. Look, it's no secret that down or in the doldrums in the last 33 years, somebody pointed out to me today, the only 3 teams that haven't won an Ulster Championship are Down, Fermanagh and Antrim. Do you know what I mean? And that's the where we are. I don't know the situation. People can blame and point the finger, but there are people trying their best, doing a lot of work in behind the scenes. Sponsors trying, men doing work. There's work going on in primary schools. There's work going on in secondary schools. There's work going on at these things. Are we behind other counties? Yes. There's no doubt about it. We are. Like, the proof's in the pudding. But men are putting their shoulder to the wheel and trying to change that. It'll not happen overnight, unfortunately. But like, the current group are well able, and there's no reason why they could not turn over Donegal and Ballybofey, and some of them are excellent footballers. You know what I mean? So if somebody had told you in 2009 or 2008 that in 2 years Down would be in Lorna final, they'd have laughed. The thing about Down, their biggest asset is always the biggest downfall. Our arrogance is something to be admired, and sometimes it doesn't even need to be anything to back it up. But we have an arrogant streak in ourselves, and we go to every match thinking we're going to win, which is a good thing. And like, you never know what's ahead of you. And a man once told me an hour is a long time in Gaelic football, and your reputation can change in 1 hour. You think you can be in this level, and it can just bounce to the next level. And we don't know what will happen in the future. That's why we go to watch football matches. That's why we pay the entrance fee, because we go in. Unfortunately, at the moment, in Down is probably in hope, but we are still hopeful. But we have good players, a lot of boys, good work, a lot of boys putting their effort in. I see my own club mates, a lot of them doing a lot of good hard work. They're training hard with Lavery, Marty, and them boys, and they're in good hands. You know what I mean? So hopefully, we don't know where this journey will end.
Yep. Well, the tide hasn't turned just yet, because at the time of recording, Armagh just beat Down by 9 points in the McCartan Cup. So, still, there's still a dog sitting at the top right now for a while anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Armagh are on top and are doing well. They were doing fantastic, and it's great to see it. And as you well know, after Down, I would be an Armagh man next. I'm not better than you guys up the road. I would be
first I've heard of it.
First I've heard of it. Lovely. I support Armagh, unlike you boys down the High Moss. Couldn't tear for a red and black jersey.
I'll not argue with you, because it'll only be lying. Very good. Daniel McCartan, an absolute pleasure to have you on, and thanks very much.
No problem. Gary, nice to talk to you.
Thanks to Dan there for a very enjoyable discussion. Coming up on the podcast will be a former County Armagh player, and also a very high profile and well known Monaghan guest ahead of Monaghan versus Armagh in the National League opener in Clonus. Make sure to look out for those. But until then, thanks for watching, thanks for listening to the Inside Game Podcast.